So, good morning, everybody. Thank you. It also works with me, apparently, but I'm here to talk about a serious issue. Many members, especially young members of the LGBTQ community, unfortunately face many challenges. Among them, abuse, violence, and bullying. As a matter of fact, do you know how many students, young LGBTQ students, face bullying in school? It's more than 50%, according to a recent UNESCO report. It's a shocking number, and it holds true for both Europe and South Asia. So what do we believe are the main causes of this? We think there are two main reasons that lead to this tendency. The first one is lack of education. We believe that both among youth and society in general, there's still a tremendous lack of education on the LGBTQ community. And Mr. Yannick Shetty, as you've said, education is key to solve so many of our issues, and that also holds true when it comes to the LGBTQ community. And in addition, there is a lack of visibility of the entirety of the spectrum. So even if we speak about the LGBTQ community, we tend to overemphasize gay men. Just look at pride parades in Europe, also in Germany, which I have experienced, which are dominated by gay men. So we need to change that. We believe that diversity can only work if we also include other members of the LGBTQ community, transgender, lesbians, and all the other members. So now that we've talked about what the problem is and what we think are the roots, please take a look at this. I'm standing here, you're sitting here in Colombo, some 7,000 kilometers away from where this painting was created, and still we all know, all of you know, this is the Mona Lisa. So art has a lot of potential, and this potential we want to use. So the solution that we propose to all these issues is art. We believe that art has a lot of benefits. Art is a universal language. As you see with the Mona Lisa, you don't need to know the regional tongue, the local tongue, to appreciate its art, its music, its murals, its paintings. Excuse me, this is not working? Now it is. Art also is a bridge across cultures. To put an example, look at Bollywood movies. Bollywood movies are being watched across the world, they're being appreciated across the world, and in doing so, they bring people from countries worldwide closer to India, closer to its traditions and its values. And most importantly, art is as colorful as the LGBTQ community. Art comes in infinite variations, forms, it's colorful, so we believe that art is the best language that can be used to promote our queer ideas. Therefore, we've come up with something we call locomotive. And Shivam will tell us more about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Felix. Imagine being stuck in your daily boring routine and then getting the opportunity to be a part of an interactive and immersive experience while learning something new. Locomotive is exactly that. It is a pop-up art exhibition inside a refitted bus and an art fair outside. We will use these buses as anchors around which we will create dialogue through art. We will create partnerships with schools and colleges, coverage in traditional and social media, and word of mouth to drive footfall in these fairs. Each bus will feature two artists, one from Europe and one from South Asia, and we will have representation across the queer spectrum when inviting artists. What these locomotives will feature are collaborative art projects which will represent cooperation and friendship between those artists and by extension the South Asian, and the European region. The projects will be around themes such as growing up queer, love and heartbreak, coming out, and other queer experiences. The outcomes of these projects will be exhibited inside these refitted buses, along with artwork created by the young audiences and participants as well. The space outside will be used for interactive workshops, panels, drama, music, and several other interesting activities to enable free and open dialogue between the participants, artists. In summary, we want to use art to facilitate dialogue, learning, and cooperation between our two regions. Through education of all youth and representation of the queer spectrum, we hope to reduce the challenges faced by queer youth. We hope to affect a positive change in their lives and reshape Europe and South Asia through art. Thank you.
How do you feel?
Quite good.
Okay. All right. Now, juries, how do you feel? Good. Are you ready with your questions for the team? May I request? Yes. Now is the moment, Bhumi. Go ahead.
I have one. Sorry if it might sound stupid, but I have two. Okay, can you hear now? Okay.
I can hear you, yes.
So two things actually I wanted to know. So first one, do you think, when you presenting, you found out and you presented lack of education is one of the issues that we have. But I wanted to know whether is it a lack of education, or do you think is it a system of our education or the methods that we are using for the education? Because education is already there. I mean, in Sri Lanka, we have some chapters which is not, a comprehensive chapters, which slightly touching on, sex and reproductive health, but it's not elaborated. So do you really think it's lack of education or which need to be changed the education system? Number one. Number two, so it's two buses or few buses, because it's, covering one bus, covering the entire area. It's quite a bit challenging thing, and I'm thinking about the practicality. So, and number two, joining to that question, can you elaborate your activities? How are you going to do that with the bus?
Sure.
Hope you got what I'm trying to ask.
Should I go with the first question you just?
Yeah.
All right. So education, I think you're perfectly right that it's both what we teach children, but also how we teach it. That's perfectly true. But when I think of my education in German schools, we had sex education as well. But never in this sex education was 3 years in total, we repeated, was LGBTQ issues mentioned, not even gay sex. So it's about health as well as raising awareness also among those who are not members of the LGBTQ community. And while in Sri Lanka education might be good, or at least in some ways might be good, in other countries, both in South Asia and Europe, education is lacking. And it's the content mostly, I believe. And Milos, we've spoken about education in Poland and how LGBTQ issues are banned in Polish schools. So I think we must first address also the content of education. But then again, education, when I was back in school, that was an issue that I dealt with much more than now, but I was never happy with the education system. That has to change, probably a profound change, but it's difficult to get to the roots of education. So we want to focus now on the content. That's why we're creating this mobile arts exhibition, so that we can promote diversity and similar values through the contents of education. So we focus on the contents.
And research has also shown that art-based education or unconventional methods of teaching about topics which are usually taboo or difficult to explain, that is much better medium than a theoretical or a factual classroom approach. So which is why this is something that's also going to be more impactful. And in terms of the kinds of activities, so when we talk about art, we include the entire spectrum. So that can be music, it can be theater, it can be painting, and the activities can be something like storytelling, having a human library, visual art, music, theater, and the list is endless. So all of those activities will be planned and developed by the two artists in collaboration. We don't want to put any restriction on what they propose. And the second part around the bus, so initially we plan to start with one bus in each region, in one in South Asia and one in Europe. Of course, in South Asia, it will have to be one country given the borders. But that's how we plan to start, and then we want to take the learning and the feedback from that one bus and eventually move forward with additional buses.
Any other questions from the jury members?
Should I go on? Yeah, thank you very much. I have maybe a more personal question, and going a step back. If I got your biographies right, Felix, your profession is in international affairs, and you're concerned with environmental issues. So, what was the idea? So, could you maybe share from your brainstorming phase to get up with this very specific focus on art?
Mm-hmm. So we started thinking, first of all, about representation and how that is an issue and how we can tackle that. And that's where the idea to create something art-based came from, because we thought, how can we achieve to represent the entirety of the queer community? And as we've said before, we think art really is the best medium to deliver this message, that the queer community is really diverse. We wanted to go away from focusing on gay men, which is both an issue in Europe and South Asia, and create a more broader approach. And then we came up with the issue of education, which we also wanted to address, which was Shivam's idea, actually. And so we thought, how could we combine these two? So we had art as a medium already, and then we thought, well, we need to promote this art. We want to reach especially the youth. And so that's how we came up with this mobile arts exhibition, through which we can reach most of the youths, in theory at least, in South Asia and Europe.
We were initially looking at the other theme, which is increasing the representation in politics, but then we realized that before we even talk about politics, especially in the South Asian context, it is important to take a step back and at least tell people that what it means to be queer, and especially the youth, because they are the ones who have a mind that can be molded, they can be exposed to new ideas, they can be accepting of newer ideas, and that can be a pipeline for the future leaders in the future.
And if I may add, I think you studied law just like me, and sometimes it's good to, get out of the library, do something different, and not be stuck to the books. And so that's why we wanted to do something, shake it up a bit, shake up the conversation a bit.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is it done with the questions?
Yes, it's done.
All right.
I think Dan has a question.
Are there any other questions from you? Yes. Okay, all right. So one more question.
Yes, we all might want to jump in with a question, but we'll try
You
to
all
make
have
it
a question for that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we'll carry on. Okay, just keep the interaction for about a couple of minutes, if that's okay. So
yes,
that we make sure everybody gets the chance
yes,
to.
Sure.
So maybe a bit of a hardball, but really curious to hear your thoughts on how you would approach sort of entering countries with this project that might be a bit more hostile than friendly to it. You already mentioned one example during your presentation and previous answers, but sort of just talk a bit about that, where you might there are dangers or there could be potential harms to the artists themselves if it's not properly done.
A very good point. We thought about that too. There are quite a few challenges if we talk about diversity, and we think this is where an arts exhibition might actually help, because we can label it, according to the legal needs. So we don't have to label big on the bus LGBTQ if that might be an issue. We can make it about diversity. We can make it about backgrounds or something. So art is a medium that sort of sets a lower barrier to enter the discussion on LGBTQ issues. So we think we might benefit from that.
Art can be a proxy for whatever we actually want to talk about while not talking about that.
Is it on? Quick question. So I love the idea of using art to promote the community. In the West, art is respected, loved through exhibitions, museums. You see a lot of students going and learning from it. I don't see that happening much in South Asia. I think it's still a niche art as a form, even in schools. How do you think you're going to tackle it? Are you going to use other forms of art to raise awareness? Because of my lived experience growing up in a boarding school in India and just understanding how it works, I think art is still seen as something that is a niche or something of a privilege, where very privileged people can benefit out of it. What do you think, like any other forms of art?
Again, in terms of art, we are pretty much open to use all kinds of different art forms. And as you said, that it's difficult to get students interested in something like this, which is where we initially want to focus on schools or colleges where we find that we can get an in. We have a foot in the door, or we have any existing partnership, someone who will be open to give us the opportunity to go there and talk about this issue. And part of it can be making it mandatory as a class. Part of it can also be making it optional, so that other students who are not actually in that class can also attend. And the fact that we are trying to make it like a fair is something that will also be attractive to youth, because they do want to go out and see what's there. Oh, there's a bus, there are tents over there, people are sitting and talking, people are drawing. So even if there's something like that, you are immediately attracted and want to go and check out. And once you are there, you might be interested. Right? So that's like a funnel, that how many people you initially want to look at, versus how many people come there, how many actually sit and listen, and how many change their minds. So it'll be a funnel, but hopefully we change a few minds.
And I mean, if it goes well, I might add, we might break the privilege of art that you've described by touring the countries, by going to the people. So we set the barrier quite low for people to come in and to learn from us.
Thank you. Sorry, I have to cut this interaction short. Wonderful interaction, though. I have that kind of job today. Okay, thank you so much. Can we all put our hands together for this wonderful team? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Shivam and Felix. Thank you.